this sound. Tune in for change. Golden compass in a world of change.
And it is such a very good Sunday to you today, one and all, whoever's listening and whoever might be wanting to listen a little bit later on, beyond live in the podcast. You are here with me, Shelley Kim, on Kind of Sound Radio today, as always on Sundays, and you are with me in the Growing Forward segment of the show. And we have, and I know I've said this very often in the past, we do have a really special guest today because of a quality, or maybe three, that kind of in my personal books I rate really very, very highly. And this lady by the name of Shekina Rose, welcome to Studio, Shekina.
Hello, Shelley Kim. It's so good to be here and to connect with you.
It's great to have you on. This lady has very special qualities besides being a language of light transmitter, which we are going to be absolutely privileged enough to hear not once but twice live during this coming hour. She has an absolute purity and an innocence, and perhaps that's why she brings through the powerful gifts that she does to this planet for the mother, the divine mother, and for the healing of all, for the upliftment of all. And so it stands to reason then that our topic for discussion today is going to be about this, standing resolute in the Holy Mother's energy, or just in the Holy Mother, and what it takes to be that, what it takes to know that and to stand strong. So, right, before we get into our conversation, though, we're going to do what we normally do, and that is go over to our guest quote. And Shekina has chosen for us today her favorite quote as being the following, which she got when she had a near-death experience. This is what the light told her. We'll ask her to elaborate on that a little bit later. It goes as follows: kindness is God's love in action. So we just want to know, in short from now, Shekina, why you chose that one for us here on Kind of Sound today.
Because it's so important, and it's who we are, humankind. And when I went to the light and back, and this was the first time that I had a near-death experience, my first one. And when I was conversing with the light, we shared so much that was so important. The many things that we telepathed and talked about, and what was shared to me, that was something that was shared with me to take back to this planet. And there was such an enhanced emphasis on that. And I know that, and that's what they told me, and that it's God, that we're a part of God, and that we have, when we do this, when we're kind and considerate, and it can be really small, it can be a really small act. It's like we're awakening and we're activating that God principle within us.
Right.
And the power of light and that connection.
Okay.
And so that's why I share it, because sometimes I think on this planet we forget that, and how simple that is, and how that is truly who we are. And that's our God essence with us. So that's why I chose that.
Fabulous. Okay, like I say, I'm going to get you to elaborate a little bit later, Shekina, on that one. But I did omit to say, folks, by the way, that we are on Growing Forward. I've got a little series on Growing Forward that I call Chats About God, and this conversation with Shekina falls into that Chats About God. So this is Chats About God 10, Standing Resolute in the Holy Mother. So a little bit about Shekina before we go over to whatever she has planned or is not planned to be transmitted through her as in place of our opening track, which couldn't be more indulgent, I think. A little bit about Shekina first. She's an angel messenger who sings in an ancient, lost angelic language of love. She never sung until after her NDE experience, where in the light she was attuned to the music of the spheres. Science analyzed her voice and verified that her vocal intonations contain the whole lost scale, or the pure tones of the ancient solfeggio frequencies of 5 to 8 hertz. And she can tell us a little bit more about that, which include DNA repair, transformation, miracles. That's what that 5 to 8, I understand, is about. She can correct me if I'm not right later on. Many who experience her songs and vocal transmissions recount having instant healings and awakenings, accompanied by the blessings of the Divine Mother Goddess, Shekinah, and the angelic realms. In 2008, Shekinah was enlightened as a Blu-ray when she was downloaded with information about and the history of the sensitive, empathic, or empathetic rather, star beings and what their mission was on planet. She is a transformer of energy, a healer who uses music, sound codes, harmonics, ushering in music from heaven and the higher realms through divine transmission, balancing the body's energy fields. And she can assist in attuning one to their own vibrational frequency and connection to source and the angels. She's so she does one-on-one sessions of that nature that are all about that sort of healing. And in fact, I've just experienced something similar with a local person who does something very similar actually to Shekinah. And she's the creator of the Sedona Star World Peace Angel Universal Frequency, harmonizes high frequency pendants and sacred technology. So right now we're going to cross live to Shekinah, who is going to transmit to us a special lighted angelic song, or light language as she calls it. Are you done, Shekina?
Oh,
Oh,
for this moment, yes.
for this moment, that was absolutely stupefying. Yes, and I had all sorts of strange memories, which wouldn't be the first time. But what I want to know, and I'm sure listeners do too, is do you know what you're singing, what the meaning of that light language is as you're singing it or speaking it?
So this particular one, there's energies that come forth, and the theme right now was there was two things that were happening, and the divine mother goddess energy, and through Sophia as well, was coming in the beginning with like a new frequency of the new frequency of light. There's like a new holding awareness of frequency of the sacred divine feminine embodiment. And that was coming through in the beginning. And then because we're connecting with you, and we're connecting with all of the people at the highest point where my soul meets source God creation with the listeners. So I do this pre-show. I do this before my prayers, before I tune in. And so as this was happening, there was also the nature and fairy, the nature devic fairy kingdoms were all also merged in, because that is another aspect and understanding that is really important for us to be in, and that's our embodiment, and that's our connection with nature. So this kind of the second part was coming in with that sharing of the Devic intelligence. And there, I also felt, because I don't know exactly what will happen, so the tones were coming in, and I felt them, because they were like totally attuning us and aligning us, getting us really clear and aligned. And you know, this language it's different than how a song is sung. So it's how the frequency is. It's beyond words. It's frequencies that our souls and our spirit remembers when before we came, and it's part of who we are. It's a frequency language.
No, that was absolutely beautiful. For people that are just coming into or feeling a pull towards the divine feminine and the Sophia, what is the purpose of the divine feminine on the planet at this time? And perhaps you can also share your perspective on some of the qualities and the characteristics that live in us that are of the divine feminine, that are kind of raring to go, because that is what must happen, that humanity can unfold itself into the next level of our evolution, and so that we can be whole and free once more. So how would you define the Holy Mother and some of its qualities and characteristics?
She is the divine potential. There's many names for her. The Shakti energy, the sacred divine feminine energy, the Yin energy in the Taoist. And she is what brings things. She is the beingness. She brings to herself heaven on earth. Through her, the sacred divine feminine, we are created and manifested. So she is the beingness of who we are. And the male energy, so everything is indicative to who and what we are. So we come into this life, the sacred divine feminine magnetized to her, and she brings forth creation within her and anchors it here upon this planet, because this is how we come on the planet. Mm-hmm. From womb to womb, from mother to mother. Our first breath of life is from her, the sacred divine feminine, the mother. And so and the masculine energy is more actionary and goes out into the world. So everything that we are about, if everything, the sacred divine feminine is so connected to the cycles of Earth. Now, the masculine is too. So we both have sacred divine feminine and masculine within us. And however, I believe, women have more of that, because that's more of our role. If you're a female, then you're experiencing life for God, with God, for humanity, through the sacred divine feminine. Mm-hmm. So you have more of those characteristics of that beingness.
I guess that some of the many characteristics of the divine feminine, which live in both men and women, besides love, would encompass kindness, as we spoke about off air, grace, maybe nurturing, compassion, mm-hmm. and many, many more characteristics. Maybe you can add to that list. Yes. That actually are designed to be experienced and expressed by both genders. And that's what the difficulty is with where we've evolved to so far on this planet, that the patriarchy has had a grip for millennia, and it has never been as threatened as it is at this very moment, because of the very fact that the divine feminine is rising, and rising fast, as it must now. So when we talk about standing strong in the Divine Mother's presence, first and foremost, it's within us, right? As well as outside of us. Yes. What's your take there?
Well, coming from being a blue ray, and
yes, can you explain to listeners what a Blu-ray is, how you came to do these Blu-ray transmissions, channelings? Actually, that's how I came to you many years ago. What does it mean to be a Blu-ray?
Well, I was downloaded that I didn't know what I really was. I felt like I really didn't have quite a place upon this planet. And others at different times said maybe that, you know, that I was an indigo. But I knew, because I'm very sensory and empathic and intuitive, that I wasn't an indigo. And I was downloaded that one day that I was from the blue ray. And prior to that, I had never heard about the blue ray and that way, the characteristics and who these beings were. And at that moment, when I agreed that, when I heard it from I believe my star mother, that I was from the blue ray, there was something inside of me that registered that was true. And as soon as I registered, so that's a download. When you agree to a download, then all the information comes in, and that's what's happened to me. All this information just came flooding in. And I remembered and I knew that I was from the blue ray, and that the blue ray were ultra sensitive empath, star seeds, interdimensional, interplanetary beings that work through the mother frequency and had come to the planet in a particular way with certain characteristics and traits to assist humanity. One of the traits is that they are ultra sensitive, empathic, sensory, and they work through the mother frequency. They are, and the reason for that is that aspect of the divine mother, or the sacred divine feminine, has, and the intuition and that connection to the cycles and to life and a higher knowing of information and a resonancy that we have with our souls and to each other. That was very much through the systems of the patriarchal system, got lost. And the male energy is beautiful. It is just that we haven't been balanced in the sacred feminine. And that's why we were called. So we were called upon this planet from, and we know that we're not from here. Like, we've always known it, but it's been kind of quiet within us. And our language, like our first language, a lot of times is not speaking. It's like, for myself, speaking is not easy for me, but I've surrendered to that's how it's done here, because it's so linear and there's so much more in communication. So there's this an empathic sensory wisdom. And so we came here to restore that empathic nature line in humanity with Mother Earth Gaia, and with humanity to activate those things. We came as transformers because we're very connected to the water element, if you think of the blue. And so that is about flow and rhythm. And that's like our home, and where we feel really comfortable because we're really connected with the flow and the rhythms of life. We came as transformers. And that's a lot of times why we were born in dysfunctional families, and we are the black sheep, and we feel out of place, and even our families look at us and go, "Who are you? You're not here." But that was our first mission.
I'm laughing at complete recognition, complete identification. Yes, our missions that we thought went awry, well, many of us did at some point or another, if you've been around long enough. But actually, they haven't gone awry. We are at the end, as we chose to be at the beginning of the cycle, we are here at the end of it, or at least those of us that have been around the block a few thousand, a few hundred or thousand lifetimes. Yes, yeah, I've been here quite a lot myself. But what I wanted to know from you is, let's take a step or two back to your own personal story. And in the bio, I introduced you as somebody who'd never sung before. You didn't have one NDE, near-death experience. You had 3, which has to be like absolutely phenomenal. What did each one of those give you besides opening up your voice to become a representative for the celestial choir? What did they open up in turn? Just very briefly, if you tell us a little bit about where you were at spiritually before the first one, and then just as succinctly as you can.
Well, I had to have 3, and I did not ever believe that would ever happen again after my first one. So I had to go back a few different times to really get it. And so prior to my first one, because the first one was the most dramatic one, and where it kind of shifted everything that I was and my name and how I related in life. But prior to that, I was always a blue ray. I was always, sensitive and empathic and, sort of on the path. I was always on the path. But you always think that you're on the path until you have your next shift and your next level of ascension. And in everything that you've been taught, because a lot of things are taught here from a spirituality point. So a lot of times how you connect with God is from what you've learned here on the planet and the different institutions and religions. And I have all support and compassion and non-judgment for all religions. Yes, because they did come from the light. But when I went to the light, I experienced, and I went straight to the light. I experienced a kind of like a purity that showed me the light of Creator and how it came down upon the planet and how it streamed through all religions. But what happened when I was there, and I didn't know, you don't know this fully until it takes quite some time to come back. I mean, years and maybe even a decade or more to integrate.
What do you mean? Because you're just kind of so dazed between two worlds kind of thing, or what?
A lot of near-death experiencers will say that it takes them years and years to integrate what happens, because it is so vast, and you're in this place of all that is like the light of creation. And I was in the music of the spheres, but I didn't know it at the time. I was just in this space of my being was communing again with the true harmonics of everything. And so I was going to cross over to the light. I won't go into too much detail. I was going to cross over, but there was it was like a half a second that something inside of me just said, like from my heart, I want to sing in the language of light. And I didn't really all know what that meant. And that just plummeted me back into my body, not fully conscious, but back upon this planet. And I did start singing, and I knew that was really important. And I feel that, and I didn't know this at the time, but I almost feel like now that there was a validation of what happened to me was when science came and found me, because I knew that this is what I had to do. And I don't know anything about music. I don't know anything about singing in any way, shape, or form. But I did because that's what that's my reason for being upon this planet. So science found me and said that they wanted to test my vocals. And actually, they kind of wanted to discredit me. And I had just gotten back from the light.
Yeah.
And so I knew what this was about, and I could care less what this earth realm thought of this, because this was why I came back. And anyhow, science, a physicist, analyzed my vocals and came out with, all in one time that I sing, they analyzed all of these frequencies, and there's a ton of them, and I don't share all of them because it's just too much. But one of them was the 6 pure tonal notes of creation, the ancient solfeggio scale. And so how in the world could I suddenly start singing in something like that? Or how in the world? No, I didn't know it at the time because I was still a deer in headlights coming back from the planet, and I had done one thing because my girlfriend in LA really wanted me to sing. So it just kind of all happened that way. And when he told me that, I had no idea what he was talking about. But he also said that I sang, and the mathematical equation of creation, that apparently there was a scientist, Marco Rodin, that had come up with the science of an equation of creation and a lot of other things. So I almost...
Well, so you are it. You are an expression, a fractal of God consciousness on this planet that is able to be living proof of the mathematical equations and the whole Steiner interpretation of maths and music, and all of that comes together in you through your voice and what it is you're bringing in from the highest and holiest spheres, which is absolutely divine. In a word, it is divine. It can be nothing else. So, okay, we're going to pick all this up in just a few minutes, but we're going over to our Midway song now, which is also Shekina's, and she has very kindly is allowing Kind of Sound Radio to play quite a bit of her music. And right now, we've got lined up for your listening pleasure, Love Unveiled by Shekinah. Enjoy.
Oh Kind of Sound Radio, the station for a global community.
Golden compass in a world of change.
Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I have, but I'm guilty of having had it on repeat for a while this week, listening to a lot of Shekinah's music. Shekinah, what does that love unveiled mean to you exactly? Tell us a bit about it.
Well, like you were saying, Shelley, that it triggers, this music triggers something in our like ancient memory as well, and our where we're at. And so that one in particular is very much our divine, holy connection with our true nature of the devas, the nature, and it's and the beauty and the innocence and the light, the love that we are, that who we truly are as through the mother frequency, with the mother frequency, with mother, and how we used to be so connected, how we used to be connected with the devas, and how it made us these different kind of beings. And it just, I'm very much connected to the devic intelligence, the devas, and they are pure beings of frequency. And that's one aspect, and but it also brings back that time of, because I was seeing you in a veil, and the times of the Essenes, those different times, and many times when, and Lemuria, when we were that, when we had this harmony of creation, and also with the stars, you know, like with our home, and we felt more at home upon this planet.
Yes. So there's nothing like being anchored here in time and space to help you forget everything about who you are, right? But yes, I mean, let's face it, billions of us came onto the planet knowing full well that amnesia would become our best friend and worst enemy, like it or not. And luckily for us, in this incarnation, there is light at the end of the tunnel. There are rewards because we are returning to the full conscious knowledge of who we once were. Some of us might get to the finish line. I know it's not a race, but some of us might get to the finish line a little bit later, take a bit longer than others, but we are all getting there, and we are all 100th monkey syndroming, I guess, each other, as we are right now, and particularly apropos all the many that are reincarnated on planet for this exact reason, to serve and usher in the divine, or I call her the Holy Mother's presence, anchoring it into the earth for others, but by first anchoring it fully into ourselves. So yes, when I think of finding resolve in this relationship with Holy Mother God, I think of those qualities. The thing is, those qualities can't be contrived. They can't be imposed upon ourselves from outside through practices, through rituals, although they may take us a little bit of the way. We have to feel them naturally in order to be fully standing, resolute, ready to serve the Mother. What's your take on that? What do you feel, Shekina?
I really agree with about feeling them and our emotions, being connected to our body, being connected to our intuitive, empathic wisdom. And so the mental energy is more masculine. And if you've seen on this planet, everything tends to be talking and mental.
Yes.
And anything can happen because our leaders or our institutions speak it so. They're just talking, and they can talk us into anything or share anything with us, and we don't know if it's true or not. And why could that be so? And why that could be so is we have not embodied who we are. And that comes from empathic resonance. That's the emotions, that's the feelings, that's the intuition. We're kind of taught to not trust that. And I've also seen so there's something really happening. I'm seeing and feeling more of the embodiment of the sacred divine feminine because we really need it. And I want to say this. Don't let energies, and I don't want to say anything about particularly about the male energy, but sometimes that's your own male energy. You have the male energy within you. Don't let the male energy talk you out of what you feel and what you know to be true and what you need to do. And that's masculine, that's for men as well. Because being a blue ray, we feel and we sense immediately first. It's quicker than talking. We know instantly. We feel who we are. The sacred divine feminine is connected to that sensory, empathic, etherical, and also that the multi-dimensional world. And it's an amazing, incredible strength that we have. And it's something that is needed so much right now. And it's interesting that I'm seeing that women and you need to take the time. It's an honoring. So you have to honor your emotions, your feelings, your empathic wisdom, and you have to get used to trusting your intuition and taking that time, because you build up that rapport with yourself. And there's also healing that has to happen as well, of being shut down and allowing, that expression again, and how to create. So things are shifting so much. When we talk about manifesting, it's manifesting. And it's more of that very actionary, one, get it, go, drive. And creation and creating is also a way that we bring things into our lives. And so things have been shifted right now, I feel, in our world that is allowing us to experience more of the sacred divine feminine energies it's being in the sacred rhythms of life and the celestials and the stars and the planets. And
I'm thinking along the lines of how easy, not only for me am I feeling it recently, how much easier it is for me to stand up and lay my boundaries. And so many women have had issues with laying boundaries because on some level we have still been programmed by the patriarchal programming, which says men know better, men know different, and men can guide you, men can lead you. Even if you go to an all-women's gathering or a retreat, there might be one man, for example, who might try and take the lead, or who might say, well, woman, why don't you stand up? You've got to stand up for yourselves. And there again, we're looking to men. But when this thing called laying boundaries starts to become second nature, then your whole response is not a reaction anymore. where you might feel oppressed by what that man might be saying. I'm just using that as an example. Or your whole reaction would become one that is more responsive, because you're naturally able to stand in your boundaries. And for me, that's such an important element to standing resolute in your holy, divine mother presence. I don't know about how you feel. Well, that's something that's kind of pertinent to me at the moment. Clearly something I'm working with. How do you feel about that boundary setting?
Being also a blue ray it's first and foremost and extremely vital and important, because as a blue ray and because I'm so sensory and I'm so empathic that I've had to learn. You have to learn about these boundaries. And I so agree with you, Shelley, Kim, about that is important to honoring and anchoring and embodying your sacred divine feminine. As a blue ray, I have to be in my own energy space as an empath, because what happens is we pick up a lot of other people's energies and we don't even know it. And so it takes time to know how it is to be in your own field of resonancy. And it does take boundaries, and it takes practice. I've had to practice a lot with that. And so there's certain things that I live a certain kind of way because I am affected, energetically and empathically by others, our harsh environments, all kinds of things, or even being in someone else's field for a long time that is intense. But see, my body and my being and my empathic, sensitive, more the sacred feminine knows. It knows, and it's that trusting.
Yes. And just to get back to when we individually or collectively as a group of women feel able to stand in that space without having to impose anything on ourselves from the outside, when we can just stand strong in our compassion and still say, no, I don't agree with that. Or I feel you, whoever the people or the individual is, are overstepping the mark. When we can do that as individuals and groups of women without feeling bad about speaking out, in response to something a group or an individual man might be saying, when we can just feel that, I think, and I think actually that is what's happening at the moment. More and more women are coming to know in a very natural way that it is okay. It is okay to stand, to be resolute, and to be firm at the same time. I don't know if I like the term or it's relevant to this discussion, righteous anger. I mean, yes, there's a place for that. But to actually stand firm in compassion, kindness, but still say no where no is needed to be said, or to still challenge where that challenge is needed. And there's been that disconnect for women across the millennia of not being able, willing, or even desirous of standing up to, I want to say up to men kind of sounds like it's against, but we do need to do that. And not only with men, obviously, but where we feel it's necessary, it's called for. So I guess, yes, I'm still hopping on here about boundaries in one way or another.
So I really like what you had to share. And even, being in the presence of who we are is extremely and vitally important. And sometimes it's by our actions. And also, and it's okay to say, this doesn't feel right to me. This is how I feel about it. And not going into an attack or anything like that, but standing with your own presence. This just doesn't feel right to me, or this is how I'm experiencing it. This is what my intuition is telling me, and being with that. And like you said, and also honoring the other person. I'm very connected to the sacred divine feminine, and I do a goddess attunement. And there have been different beings that have come to me. And sometimes I share about these different beings that emulate qualities of the sacred divine feminine. Mother Mary, Kuan Yin, Mary Magdalene, and Kali. Kali is a little different in her expression because sometimes we have that Kali energy in us and we need to be that Kali energy. And we think of Kuan Yin and you think of who she is and the presence of what she's expressing of the sacred divine feminine.
And just so listeners know, Kuan Yin was a master from the East. Yes, just a little bit more about her.
Yes, she's a Buddhavista. She's also connected to Buddha. They say that she was Buddha's mother, and she is so full of compassion, and so many people are connected to her. But her way, she stands in such a presence. She's a very powerful being.
Yes.
Yes. But she does it in a certain way. Because of her presence, just like Mother Mary. Mother Mary is extremely powerful, but her presence is that holding that higher power, that sacred heart of love. Yeah. She's extremely powerful. So there's other ways that we can hold the strength. And then we've got beings like Kali that shows us as well, that sometimes we do need, we have that strength. We also have that power within us too.
Absolutely.
Kali, and to transform and to just shift things that are not right in our lives when it's time, because sometimes things do need to be transformed then and there. And we need that power at different times. So we have that. We have those different aspects. But it's that presence. When you think of all of these beings, they are holding the presence of who they are.
And then you said something, I don't know whether it was during this discussion. Was it you that said that those beings that you have made contact with when you go up for your visits and your contacts are us in the future? They are our future selves. Was it you that said that to me? Do you know that to be true or not true? And yeah, I'm talking about potentially including whatever contact you might have had, if you've had with the inner earth people, our higher dimensional brothers and sisters who I believe were the kind of remnants, oh, that sounds terrible, the remnants of the Cathars, or the Cathars during all the massacres, and some of them went to establish the inner earth series of cities called Agatha. And they are completely in their wholeness, balanced in their masculine and feminine, don't have the challenges we have, therefore, on the surface. So, yeah, I wondered whether you had anything to say about them and their perspective on the divine feminine.
I believe that when a lot of these beings do come to us, like what you were sharing, that they are part of us, and at a different time space. I think we're beginning to understand that a little bit better, or that they are part of our essence many times, and that we have connected with them before. And we are actually sometimes a part of them and who they are.
Yeah, I'm so sorry I have to interrupt you because we're already out of time and we can't let you go without hearing your last song or transmission that you're going to be bringing through for us and our listeners. And I just want to say it's been such a pleasure to have you. Way too short, but that is the way it goes. I want to just share with listeners, if they want to get hold of you, Shekina, then they can do so at your website, which is shekinarose.com, Shekina Rose.com. She's on YouTube. Her music's on Amazon, Apple, iTunes, Spotify. She's there as well. Absolutely beautiful, stunning. Listeners, I hope you loved and appreciated that as we do here at Kind of Sound. It's been a pleasure, Shekina, and we will make contact again next week, same time, same place, on Kind of Sounds Growing Forward. From me, Shelly Kim, and Shekina Rose, wishing you a wonderful and growthful week ahead. Bye for now.
Shelley.
Thank you,
So
Shekina.
appreciate it. It's been wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Golden compass in a world of change.